I sat at the small wooden table near the back of the bookstore, still not sure why I'd even walked in. Maybe because it was quiet. Maybe because I needed a place where nobody knew me. Maybe because something inside me was searching for anything that didn't remind me of Mia. Alice returned a moment later with a mug of steaming tea. Chamomile, from the smell. She placed it in front of me gently, like I was made of glass. "Drink," she said. "It won't fix anything, but it'll help you breathe." I managed a small nod. My hands were still shaking, so I wrapped them around the mug to steady myself. She didn't sit across from me right away. She watched me for a second, studying my face with the kind of quiet attention that felt disarming. Most people look away when someone's falling apart. She didn't. "You look heartbroken," she finally said. "And furious." I let out a breath that sounded more like a laugh. "Something like that." "Girlfriend?" she asked. "Ex," I corrected, though the word felt unnatural in my mouth. "As of yesterday. Or maybe long before that, and I just didn't know." Alice didn't say, "I'm sorry." She didn't give me any cliché sympathy. She leaned one hip against the table and crossed her arms. "What did she do?" I swallowed hard. The scene flashed in my mind again, sharp and fresh. "Cheated." Alice's eyes softened, but only slightly. More focused than pitying. "You saw it?" "Yeah." She nodded once. Slow. Controlled. "Then it's good she's your ex." I stared at her. "That's it. That's the truth," she said. And unlike some people, I don't sugarcoat the truth. Something about her certainty pulled me in, like a rope thrown to a drowning man. She finally sat down across from me. Up close, she looked even sharper. Dark eyes, bold eyebrows, subtle lines near her mouth that made her expression look experienced rather than old. She had that unmistakable aura of someone who had lived, not just existed. "I'm Alice," she said. "And you?" "Daniel." "Daniel," she repeated, as if testing the name on her tongue. "You don't strike me as the type who gets cheated on." "What type is that?" I asked. Her lips curled slightly. "The type who gives too much and receives too little." That hit harder than I expected. I didn't know whether to nod or look away. Instead, I stared at the mug and forced myself to take a sip. "So what now?" she asked. "I don't know," I said. "I feel like an idiot. I left her apartment last night, and I still feel like I'm there, watching it happen." Alice didn't flinch. "She hurt your pride. That'll fade. But she also hurt your trust. That takes longer. It feels like something was ripped out of me." She tilted her head. "Then take something back." I looked up. Her tone wasn't cruel. It was purposeful. She continued, voice low and steady. "You don't have to break anything. You don't have to yell or make a scene. But you can reclaim your power, piece by piece. People like your ex, they count on you staying quiet." A small, cold spark flickered in my chest. "What are you suggesting?" I asked. A slow smile grew on her lips, neither malicious nor kind. Sharp. Knowing. "Nothing reckless," she said. "Nothing illegal. But revenge doesn't have to be dramatic to be effective. Sometimes the best kind is quiet. Intelligent. Surgical." I didn't know why, but hearing her say that made the air feel heavier. "You sound like you've done this before," I said carefully. "Oh, Daniel," she said with a soft laugh. "You have no idea." Before I could ask what she meant, a customer walked in, and she stood up smoothly. "I'll be here until 8, she said, "if you want to talk more." Then she added, leaning in just slightly, "And if you want to stop bleeding." She left me with that. I didn't know it yet, but this was the moment the story turned. The moment my pain found direction. And the moment Alice became something far more than a stranger in a bookstore. I didn't plan on going back to the bookstore. I told myself I wouldn't. I told myself I didn't need some mysterious older woman pulling me deeper into thoughts I should have avoided. But by the next afternoon, the walls of my apartment felt suffocating, almost mocking. Every object reminded me of Mia, her mug, her hair tie still on the counter, the faint scent of her perfume on the blanket. So I ended up walking back to the bookstore anyway. Not because I needed tea, not because I needed company, because I needed direction. And Alice had spoken to me like she saw something in me I couldn't find on my own. When I stepped inside, she was arranging a stack of older hardcovers. She looked up immediately, as if she had expected me. "Daniel," she said. "Back already?" I shrugged, trying not to look desperate. "Thought I'd take that breathing advice. You didn't come here just to breathe." She motioned toward the same table. "Sit." I did. She joined me, leaning back in her chair, eyes locked on me with unnerving precision. "Tell me what you've been doing since yesterday." Thinking about Mia, I admitted. Overthinking everything she said. Everything I ignored. Everything I missed. Alice tapped her nail against the table. Pain likes to loop the same thoughts. But we're not looping. We're moving forward. Forward to what? Taking back your self-respect, she said. That's step one. I sighed. And how do I do that? Alice raised a brow. By no longer letting her define the ending of your story. I frowned. That sounds poetic, but not very actionable. All right, she said. Then let's be actionable. She leaned in slightly, voice low. Does your ex think she still has emotional power over you? Probably, I muttered. Good. Use that. Alice crossed her arms. You don't disappear. You don't lash out. You evolve. Quietly. Strategically. And you make sure word reaches her. I blinked. Word of what? Of you living a better life than she expected. Happier. More confident. Without her. That's revenge. That's the foundation, she said. We'll build the rest later. Her certainty was strangely calming. I felt something inside me tighten, not pain this time, but resolve. Alice studied me again, her gaze softer now. Tell me something, Daniel. Do you still want her back? No, I said instantly. And for the first time, it felt fully true. She killed any version of us that existed. Good, she said. Then this isn't about winning her. It's about reclaiming you. Then she added, almost casually, and letting her watch you rise. A chill ran through me. She wasn't talking about pettiness. She was talking about psychological checkmate. Before I could respond, she rose from her chair. Come, I want to show you something. I followed her through a narrow hallway into a small room behind the bookstore. A reading lounge with warm lighting, a leather sofa, and shelves filled with older editions. It's where I think, Alice said. About what? She smiled faintly. About people. Their choices. Their mistakes. Their motives. I swallowed. So why bring me here? Because, she said, stepping closer. I think you're ready to make your first real decision instead of reacting to someone else's betrayal. Her hand brushed lightly against my arm. Not accidental. Not rushed, just enough to make my breath catch. Are you ready, Daniel? She asked. For the first time since Mia shattered me, the answer felt like a beginning rather than an ending. Yes, I said, and Alice smiled like she'd been waiting for that exact word. I didn't know what I expected when I followed Alice into that quiet, dimly lit back room. Maybe another lecture about self-respect. Maybe more psychological analysis. But not the thing that actually happened. The slow shift in the air, the tightening of tension that felt nothing like advice and everything like danger I shouldn't want. The door clicked shut behind us. Alice walked past me, her heels soft against the old wooden floor, and stopped near the leather sofa. She didn't sit. She just looked at me, head slightly tilted, analyzing me the way someone studies a painting before deciding whether it's valuable or forgettable. You're calmer today, she said. Your anger is controlled instead of scattered. I don't know if it's controlled, I admitted. It just feels sharper. Good. She took a small step closer. Sharp is usable. The room was warm, quiet except for the muffled sounds of customers on the other side of the wall. The lighting glowed softly against her face, highlighting the faint lines near her eyes. Lines that didn't make her look older, just wiser, more self-assured. Someone who had lived enough life to see through bullshit instantly. She studied me for a moment longer before asking, "What do you want right now, Daniel?" I opened my mouth, prepared to give some safe, vague answer, but the truth came out instead. Clarity, I said. Direction. And, maybe, not to feel so alone. Alice's eyes softened for a fraction of a second, then sharpened again. You're not alone, she said. Not if you don't want to be. She moved even closer, slow, deliberate. Her hand brushed mine, not accidentally this time. A light touch, but the effect ran through me like electricity. I should have pulled back. She was older, smarter, composed. I was wounded, vulnerable, a walking open nerve. But the moment her fingers grazed my skin, the loneliness I'd been drowning in cracked open just enough for something else to slip in. Tell me, she said quietly. Did Mia ever make you feel seen? Truly seen? I swallowed. I thought she did. And now I know she didn't. Alice nodded. Good. You're beginning to understand. Her fingers slid along my wrist, slow, intentional, tracing my pulse like she wanted to measure exactly how deeply I felt this moment. She wasn't rushing. She wasn't even flirting. She was studying me while letting me feel her presence, making sure I didn't hide from my own reactions. "What are you doing?" I whispered. "Testing a theory," she said softly. "What theory?" "That you've spent so long being loyal to someone who didn't value you, that you forgot what it feels like to be wanted." My breath hitched. Alice's voice dropped to a dangerous softness. "And you deserve to be wanted, Daniel. Not tolerated. Not taken for granted. Wanted." The heat in my chest surged. Not just desire, but something deeper, heavier, more frightening. Because she wasn't touching me like a rebound. She wasn't touching me like a fix. She was touching me like she saw something in me Mia never even tried to see. Her hand rose slowly, brushing my jaw with her fingertips. "If this is too soon," she murmured, "tell me to stop." I didn't. I couldn't. And she knew it. Her lips didn't touch mine. Not yet. She hovered close enough that I could feel her breath. Warm, steady, confident. It wasn't a kiss. It was an invitation. One I wanted far more than I should. But instead of closing the distance, she stepped back slightly, letting the tension hang between us like a pulled wire. "Good," she whispered. "You're learning to follow your instincts again. That will make the next steps much easier." "Next steps for revenge?" I asked, breath uneven. Her smile was slow, knowing, dangerously beautiful. "For revenge," she said, "and for us." The next morning, I woke with a strange mix of exhaustion and anticipation. My chest still burned from yesterday's tension with Alice. The closeness, the light touches, the unsaid things lingering in the air. I realized that for the first time in weeks, I didn't just feel broken. I felt awake. Sharp. Dangerous in a way I hadn't known I could be. I met Alice at her apartment that afternoon. Unlike the bookstore, this was a personal space. Warm, dimly lit, filled with books and subtle scents of vanilla and something spicier I couldn't name. She had arranged a small table by the window with notebooks, folders, and a laptop. It was almost professional, almost clinical, but there was that undercurrent of heat beneath the careful planning. "Ready?" she asked, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed. "I think so," I said. I don't want to make a mistake." Alice tilted her head, smiling faintly. "Then don't. We'll be precise. No mistakes. Every move counts. You remember everything you told me about Mia, yes?" I nodded. All of it. Her habits. Her schedule. How she brags about herself to friends. The way she underestimates me. "Good," Alice said, opening a notebook. "Revenge doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to hurt her where it stings, emotionally, socially. She needs to see you rising without her, while she feels small, exposed." Her hands moved gracefully as she mapped out details. Parties she would attend, people she'd interact with, the perfect timing for subtle disruptions. Every suggestion she gave was calculated. No chaos, no yelling, no public embarrassment. Cold, intelligent, surgical. "And what about us?" I asked, unable to stop the thought. The memory of yesterday's closeness was already a hunger in my chest. Alice's eyes softened for a moment. "We need focus. Desire is useful, but it mustn't cloud judgment. The closer you are to her, the sharper your mind must be. But," she paused, letting the word linger like a soft promise, "we can embrace the other part of this too. Carefully, strategically. You'll see the reward when the plan unfolds." Her voice sent shivers down my spine. She wasn't saying it flirtatiously. She was laying the groundwork for intensity. Passion, yes, but intertwined with control and intelligence. That's what made it dangerous, addictive. We spent hours going over the plan. I took notes, memorized cues, rehearsed scenarios. Alice guided me through subtle psychological tactics. How to appear confident around mutual friends. How to use small gestures to provoke envy without being obvious. How to plant glimpses of a life she'd lost. It was meticulous, precise, and brilliant. Yet underneath every strategy was that underlying current. The brush of her hand as she corrected my posture, the small, deliberate closeness as she explained a point, the way her voice dipped just slightly when she whispered instructions. Desire and strategy were merging, making me sharper, hungrier, more aware. I realized this wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming myself and discovering something far more intoxicating with Alice. By the time I left her apartment, the sun had dipped low, casting long shadows over the streets. I felt a strange exhilaration. The plan was set. The first move would happen soon. And alongside it, The tension between Alice and me had grown into a fire neither of us could ignore. Mia wouldn't know what hit her, and I was ready. The next few days were a careful dance. I went about my routine, but everything had a sharper edge. Every interaction with Mia's circle, every shared acquaintance, every small piece of gossip became a potential tool. Alice had taught me to watch, to listen, to anticipate. Not for cruelty, but for precision. I ran into Mia at the grocery store. She hadn't seen me yet. She was laughing with a friend, her hair tied back, wearing that same careless confidence that had once drawn me in. My chest tightened, a mix of anger and satisfaction. Alice's words echoed in my mind. Appear calm, appear thriving, and let her notice. I didn't approach. I lingered at a distance, casually browsing, letting her glance catch mine from the corner of her eye. She froze for a split second. A flicker of recognition passed across her face. Not fear, not guilt, curiosity, slightly unsettled. That was all I needed. Later that evening, I met Alice at her apartment. She had a glass of red wine waiting for me. The room smelled faintly of vanilla again, soft lighting casting gentle shadows across her face. "Did you see her?" she asked. "I did," I admitted, swirling my own drink. She noticed me. Just a second, but it was enough. Alice smiled, leaning in slightly. Her hand brushed mine as she adjusted a folder on the table. That's all it takes. Small shifts. Psychological nudges. That moment, Daniel, is the first real tremor. She's already off balance. I could feel the tension between us rising again. Her closeness, the warmth of her hand, the way her eyes held mine. It was deliberate. The calm, controlled intimacy she exuded made me ache. I realized I wanted more than guidance. I wanted her. But Alice reminded me, softly, almost teasingly, control your desire. Use it. Don't let it undo the plan. We spent the evening reviewing social patterns, subtle ways to make her feel the absence I left behind, and ways to amplify small victories without making a scene. Every instruction from Alice was meticulous, each one sharpening my mind and fueling a hidden thrill. As I left her apartment, the night air felt different, charged. I thought about Mia seeing me, healthy, confident, subtly untouchable, and I imagined the effect it would have. The plan was unfolding. And beneath the strategy, the fire between Alice and me was growing, unspoken but undeniable. For the first time, I felt empowered. Not because I wanted to hurt Mia, but because I was reclaiming myself, my pride, my strength, my control. And every step with Alice at my side made the anticipation more intoxicating. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It was a game we played together, a dangerous, thrilling, intimate dance. The tension between Alice and me had become almost tangible, not in a loud, dramatic way, but like a low-burning fire that made every glance, every brush of hands feel charged. We met at her apartment again, the soft evening light filtering through the curtains. She was organizing notes for the next step in our plan, and I tried to focus, but my thoughts kept wandering. "Concentrate," Alice said softly, noticing me staring. Her tone wasn't sharp, just a gentle correction, like a teacher guiding a student. Yet when she reached over to straighten a page on my notebook, her fingers brushed mine, and my pulse jumped. "Sorry," I murmured, trying to pull back slightly. She shook her head. "No, don't apologize. Focus on the fire, not the smoke." I smiled faintly, understanding. She meant desire could be a tool, but it mustn't take over. We reviewed the next moves. Our goal was subtle. Plant seeds of envy and doubt. Let Mia see me thriving without making her feel attacked. We discussed social interactions, timing, and indirect cues that would make her aware of my change. Each idea was calculated, precise, and effective. Alice watched me carefully, her dark eyes sharp yet patient. I realized she had been observing me longer than I noticed, understanding my reactions, reading my hesitations, and knowing when to nudge me forward. At one point, she leaned in closer to point at a detail in my notebook. Our faces were just inches apart. I caught a faint scent of her perfume, warm, subtle, captivating. My chest tightened. "Daniel," she said softly, her voice low, "remember what we talked about. Control. Precision. That applies here too." "I know," I whispered, almost more to myself than her. She didn't pull back. Her hand rested lightly near mine, a silent promise, a tether of trust. It was intimate, but careful. I could feel the tension, the heat, the electricity, yet it was always under control. I realized I was learning patience in more ways than one, not just with the plan, but with desire. We spent the evening quietly, planning, refining, and talking. Occasionally our hands touched, and each time I felt a spark, but neither of us allowed it to distract from our purpose. The fire was there, but it was disciplined. When I left, the air outside seemed sharper, fresher. I walked past familiar streets, thinking of Mia and the subtle ways she would begin noticing the changes in me. I thought of Alice and the calm intensity she carried, the way she made me feel powerful and alive without being reckless. For the first time in weeks, I felt more than anger. I felt confidence. I felt anticipation, not just for the revenge, but for the bond that was forming, slow and smoldering, between Alice and me. We weren't reckless. We weren't impulsive. But we were undeniably connected. And that quiet fire was growing, just beneath the surface. The first signs of change came quietly, not with dramatic confrontations or shouting matches, but in small moments, almost imperceptible. Friends of Mia started commenting on how I seemed different, calmer, more confident, sharper in conversation. My posture, the way I carried myself, even the faint smile I wore when she wasn't watching, became tools in Alice's subtle plan. I saw Mia at a local cafe one afternoon. She was with a couple of our old mutual friends. At first, she didn't notice me. Then, as our eyes met across the room, I let the smallest, almost imperceptible smirk curl at the corner of my mouth. Not arrogant, not mocking, just calm and composed. She froze, her expression flickering between recognition and unease. The tiny tremor in her demeanor made my chest tighten, not with anger this time, but with satisfaction. Alice had prepared me for this, guiding every nuance. Remember, she whispered over the phone before I went out, subtlety is everything. Make her notice your transformation, but don't confront her directly. Let her feel it in her own mind. That's where the sting is strongest. And it worked. Later, I met Alice at her apartment. The warm glow of her living room, the soft hum of the city outside, and the faint scent of vanilla and spice greeted me as if nothing had changed in the world. But everything had. You did well, she said, her eyes scanning my face as if searching for hidden truths. She's unsettled. You can see it in the small details. I saw it, I admitted. Just a moment, but it was enough. She froze. And my voice caught. I felt something. Satisfaction. Relief. Something I didn't expect. Alice smiled, a slow, deliberate curve of her lips. That's the start. The first ripple. Every observation, every subtle glance, every word will build momentum. She will notice. And eventually, it will weigh on her. Her hand brushed mine as she handed me a notebook with new notes, the contact details of people and events carefully chosen for the next stage. My heart skipped, not just from desire, but from the calculated excitement, the thrill of a plan unfolding with precision. We spent the evening refining tactics, discussing social cues, and reviewing timing. Each move was methodical, each interaction intentional. And throughout it all, the tension between us simmered, quiet, controlled, undeniable. Every time her fingers touched mine, or our eyes met just a fraction too long, I felt it. That disciplined heat, the quiet fire we had cultivated, was both intoxicating and grounding. By the time I left, the streetlights cast long shadows across the sidewalk. The city felt alive in a way it hadn't for weeks. I was alive, focused, and ready. The first ripple had been cast. The subtle shifts had begun. Mia would notice. And the connection between Alice and me, the combination of strategy and desire, was only growing stronger. The game had started, and neither of us would falter. The weeks that followed were a careful rhythm. Every step, every encounter, every subtle action was planned with Alice. The small victories accumulated slowly but surely. Mia began noticing changes, my presence at local spots, the quiet confidence I carried, even glimpses of my life shared indirectly through friends. The effects were subtle, psychological, but unmistakable. She was off balance, and I could feel it in every glance she threw my way. Alice and I met almost daily, sometimes at her apartment, sometimes in quiet cafes where no one would interrupt us. Each meeting carried the same underlying tension. We were partners in strategy, yes, but also in something more primal, a slow-burning, controlled attraction neither of us could fully deny. There was a rhythm to it, like a silent dance. Hands brushing over papers, whispered suggestions, the occasional glance lingering just long enough to remind us of the fire beneath the plan. One evening, she paused mid-sentence, looking at me with a sharp intensity. "You're changing, Daniel. Not just outwardly. There's a steadiness, a sharpness in your mind that wasn't there before." I swallowed, realizing she was speaking truth. Mia's betrayal had left me hollow at first, but under Alice's guidance, that emptiness had transformed into focus and controlled power. And the attraction I felt for Alice, careful, deliberate, almost dangerous, made every strategy session feel alive with tension. "I see it too," I admitted. "I feel different, stronger, sharper, and I can see how she's noticing." Alice's lips curved into that knowing, subtle smile. "Good. That's exactly what I wanted. But remember, the next phase requires restraint. Let her realize what she lost without making her aware of your control. That's the key." We reviewed the plan for the next social gathering. A mutual friends party provided the perfect stage for small psychological nudges. Alice instructed me on positioning, gestures, the exact tone to use in conversation. Every movement calculated. I nodded, absorbing her every word. Her hand brushed mine as she passed me a notebook with notes. The contact info for friends and the outline of casual interactions lay inside. That light touch sent a thrill through me. Intense, but restrained. Alice had a way of making everything feel charged without crossing lines. I realized I was not just following her guidance. I was learning to trust her instincts as much as my own. By the time I left, the night had grown deep, the streets quiet and still. The plan was moving forward. Mia would notice, and the subtle pressure would build. And the tension between Alice and me, careful, smoldering, controlled, was intensifying. Each interaction carried electricity, but neither of us allowed it to distract from the task. The passion simmered beneath the surface, fueling focus, keeping the mind sharp. I walked home, heart steady, mind alert, body thrumming with anticipation. The game was nearing its climax, and every small shift was preparing the stage. Alice and I were aligned, strategic, and untouchable. Mia wouldn't see it coming. The night of the party arrived. The venue was a familiar one, small town, cozy, the kind of place where everyone knew someone. I could feel Alice's presence beside me even before we entered, her calm confidence, the subtle heat that ran beneath our partnership. We had rehearsed every detail, every interaction, every glance. Tonight, it all came together. Mia was there, of course. She looked radiant, laughing with friends, entirely unaware that the narrative of her past relationship was about to shift subtly but irrevocably. I held myself taller than usual, shoulders back, a composed smirk on my face. Every movement calculated, every gesture precise. Alice leaned close as we walked through the crowd. "Remember," she whispered, "observe. Influence. Don't engage directly unless necessary. Let them feel the shift." I nodded, adrenaline coursing through me. Each step, each glance, each subtle action was designed to send a message without words. A word here, a smile there, interactions with mutual friends arranged to hint at my transformation, my newfound confidence, my freedom. Mia's eyes met mine briefly. I could see the flicker, uncertainty, curiosity, a pang of something she hadn't felt before, recognition that she had lost her grip. The night unfolded with calculated precision. Alice and I moved as a unit, our hands brushing occasionally, sharing knowing glances that fueled both strategy and desire. Every interaction reinforced the message. I was no longer defined by betrayal, no longer confined by her choices. At one point, Mia approached, attempting casual conversation. I responded with polite composure, light humor, subtle charm. The effect was immediate. She stumbled slightly in conversation, searching for footing she no longer had. And it was perfect. No overt confrontation, no dramatic scene, just the quiet sting of seeing me rise beyond her reckoning. Alice observed from nearby, her presence both grounding and intoxicating. Later, as the crowd thinned, she guided me outside to the quiet parking lot. The air was crisp, and the night sky stretched above, calm and endless. "You did it," she said, her voice soft, satisfied. "Subtle, cold, precise. She knows you're different." She knows you've won without even raising a hand. I exhaled, a mixture of relief and exhilaration washing over me. We did it, I corrected. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Her gaze softened, lingering longer than necessary. And we're not done, she murmured. It's just beginning. The tension between us flared in that quiet moment, controlled but undeniable. The fire we had kept disciplined all these weeks now pulsed between us, strong and patient. She stepped closer, our fingers brushing, then entwining naturally. There was no rush, no recklessness, just a shared understanding of the connection we had built amid strategy, calculated revenge, and mutual respect. I realized something profound. This was never just about Mia. It was about reclaiming my life, my strength, my dignity, and discovering an unexpected, passionate partnership in Alice. Together, we had turned pain into power, betrayal into transformation. The night ended quietly, with the world seemingly unchanged to everyone else. But for me and Alice, everything had changed. The revenge was complete. The bond between us had solidified, smoldering and alive, ready to face whatever came next. And in that quiet, controlled heat, I felt something I hadn't in months, whole. My name is Daniel. I'm 24, and I never thought heartbreak could feel like a physical blow. Until Mia, my ex, cheated on me. I didn't see it coming. One day we were planning a weekend together. The next I was alone, scrolling through texts that weren't meant for me, realizing she had moved on long before I knew. I was broken, not just emotionally. Everything in my life felt smaller, duller, like someone had drained the color from the world. Friends tried to console me, but I couldn't talk. I couldn't focus. Every corner of my apartment reminded me of her. The coffee mug she left behind, the faint scent of her perfume on my blanket, the playlist we used to listen to together. It was torture. Then, one rainy afternoon, I wandered into a small bookstore downtown, trying to escape my thoughts. That's when I met Alice, 34. She was standing behind the counter, arranging old hardcover books. There was something magnetic about her, not just her beauty, though she had that too, with sharp eyes and a subtle, confident smile, but the way she carried herself. Experienced, self-assured, like she had seen the worst people could do and survived. She noticed me staring at a book I didn't even want. "First time here?" she asked, her voice calm but curious. "Yeah," I muttered, embarrassed. "Or maybe you're running from something," she said, not waiting for me to answer. I froze. She saw right through me. How could she? Just needed to get out," I said finally. Her eyes softened slightly, but only slightly. "You look like someone carrying a storm inside them. You need guidance, not just books." I blinked. "Guidance? From a stranger?" "I can help," she said simply. "But only if you want to take control of what's left of your life." Something about her tone, calm, knowing, and a little dangerous, made me nod. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe I could get out of this mess. Maybe I could stop feeling like a victim. Alice didn't give me false promises. She didn't offer quick fixes. But she offered strategy, patience, and understanding. I didn't know it yet, but meeting her that day would change everything. I left the bookstore with my heart heavier than before, but also alive in a way it hadn't been since Mia's betrayal. Alice was more than a stranger. She was someone who could guide me through the wreckage, and maybe, just maybe, help me take back everything I had lost.